Magical. It's a weird. I know. We're always probably 4 or 6. Oh, okay. Are we gonna move those up? Is that what we're gonna do? Okay. Also, Mike. Okay, everybody, we're gonna get going. See the TV on? You're on. How dare you, sir?
Yeah.
Chief, they didn't even let me through and I flashed my town council badge, so.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of June 22nd. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. Welcome. We're going to move a few agenda items around. And Tony, I know that you told me you wanted to pull a particular consent agenda item. You want to start with that one?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's BB1, and this is actually the Michelle, the tax assessor, the abatement. No, I don't have any.
I think we'll hit him at the end if you're okay.
I'm
with
sorry,
that. I just wanted to
yes.
pull them out.
Okay,
And then
BB1 and CC1.
So no motion on that yet, because we also want to pull DD5 and stay with me. On the regular agenda, I'd like to move the attorney for the applicant asked if we could move D2 to the later on in the meeting because he can't be here until after 8 o'clock. That was Bruce Cox. And then lastly, if we could pull forward I4 and I5 to the beginning of the meeting, that would be the motion if everyone's okay with that.
All right.
GG16. So we'll include that in that pull out of consent agenda. Is there anything else? Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we will start, Madam Clerk, if we may, with I4 and I5.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the first item on the agenda is I4. And this is Town Administrator Contente in regards to a citation for the Director of Parks and Recreation, Sarah Klein, on her retirement.
Lots of fancy paperwork here, well deserved. This is a citation, and I'm going to read it very quickly. I'm going to read it. Sarah Klein, a valued employee of the Department of Parks and Recreation for the town of Bristol, in proud recognition of her 21 years of service to the town. In her years at the Department of Parks and Recreation, Ms. Klein has not only been an integral part of the team, but she also cares for the members of the community and went above and beyond to keep our residents active and engaged. In making this presentation, the Honorable Town Administrator and Honorable Town Council of the Town of Bristol, State of Rhode Island, and in accordance with the authority vested in them by the citizens of Bristol, and on behalf of all Bristolians, offer heartfelt gratitude and sincerest congratulations to Sarah Klein on the occasion of her well-deserved retirement. Before I read who signed that, Sarah, could you come up? This was signed by myself, by Mary Perella, Tony Cox. You get a moment in the sun. I'm sorry. So Tim Sweeney, Aaron Lay, Melissa Cadero, our town clerk. So on behalf of all of us, well, I'm sure we all want to say something, and I know the administrator certainly does. You've done an outstanding job, and your caring is out in front of everyone. You do not hide it. You have been an integral part, as these words have said, to the success of the Park and Recreation Department's outstanding job, really.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mr. Administrator?
Thank you. I have the town ceremonial coin for you, Sarah, and I always like to explain what this means. So we have a series of coins. They're kept in the safe. We log them out on record through the treasurer. I don't even have a key for the safe. The treasurer does. But I'd like to say they're not solid gold, but they carry the weight of gold. They're only given to visiting ship captains, lifelong retired employees that have served the town for, for many, many years, and visiting dignitaries. So we try to keep it at that to show the significance of it. And I just want to, I know we've spoken before. We wish you could stay longer, but we know you left the department even better than when you found it, and you've left it in good hands. So thank you for all those lives that you've touched over the years. And we know you had your heart and soul in the job, and we appreciate all that you did. And we wish you the best with you, and your Doug is here, and your beautiful daughters are here. So congratulations to you. And here's the coin, and I hope it means a lot to you.
We're not done yet. I like the way this one reads. George Ziggy Sayas, everybody knows him as Ziggy, in proud recognition of his 30 years of service for the town. In presentation, this citation, the town recognizes the hard work and dedication of George Ziggy Sayas III. For over 3 decades, George Ziggy has provided lunch for the children of Bristol and the public at the Bristol Town Beach. George Ziggy was always willing to, it's in quotes on that. Ziggy is always willing to help during recreation events, and most recently ran the town's kitchen that provided hundreds of meals to senior residents of in Bristol during the 2020 COVID pandemic. In making this presentation, the Honorable Town Council and Town Council of the Town of Bristol, State of Rhode Island, in accordance with, I keep doing that, in accordance with the authority vested in them by the citizens of Bristol, and on behalf of all Bristolians, offer heartfelt gratitude and sincerest congratulations on a job well done. Nice job, Ziggy. Where are you? Well deserved.
You have a minute.
Please.
George, I understand you weren't a full-time employee, but 30 years of honorable service and all that you did for the youth of Bristol throughout those years is seriously meaningful. And I thought that it would be appropriate to also give you a town coin. You've treated all those children very well, and I know they're safe while you're there, and it means a lot to us. And here's the coin. George served. I like to acknowledge that George served two generations. There are children of his original campers that are there, and something to be real proud of.
So congratulations, Sarah. Congratulations, George. This council and the town of Bristol say thank you for your hard work. It's very much appreciated.
I can have a motion to receive and file for
Yes.
both, please.
So moved.
Set. Mary.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Mary. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Are we going to BB1? Do you want to move that forward now, or do you want to go back to the beginning of the agenda?
We'll go to the beginning of the agenda, please.
Okay. So the, okay, so the first item of business would be the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is A1 and A2. These are the town council minutes from June 1st and the executive session minutes from June 1st.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item of business is C1. This is ordinance 2022-7. This is chapter 16 of the motor vehicles and traffic. And this is for parking prohibited at the base of San Francisco Street for the open space walking trail. This is first reading.
Make a
Motion.
mo-
Go ahead.
Make a motion to consider this the first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, constituting first reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is D1. This is Francesca Eric from Be Jeweled on 39 State Street. This is a request for a sidewalk use license.
Based on all the positive recommendations, make motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D3. This is the one-day Sunday dancing and entertainment license for July 3rd.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D4. This is Greg Marsili, the chairman from the Harbor Festival Committee. This is a request for a one-day dancing and entertainment license at Rockwell Park for the 8th Annual Harbor Fest on August 13th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we merge F1 with that.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We had a motion and a second to merge both D4 and F1 because they are connected. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the request based on the recommendations.
There's a motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to approve. I think someone's here to speak on behalf of the Harbor Fest, right?
Yes.
We need a-
Commercial.
need a commercial.
This is your 30-second commercial.
Always a great event. So.
Thank you very much, council. If you have any questions, we've brought back the Stuffies contest
Excellent.
this year, so that'll be at 1:30, and it's advertised. And thank you very much.
What else is going on?
We have the blessing at 1:30, the Stuffies contest, and we have bands and entertainment, and we have the shucking booth again for oysters and little necks, and then 5 to 7 will be the boil.
And what date is it?
August 13th,
This is a
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yes,
August 13th, Saturday.
And it starts at 1.
1:30.
Yep.
Will be
And
the
it goes to
blessing.
about 9 PM.
Yes.
And are you doing different dinners?
No, 5 to 7, one sitting.
One sitting. Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be more like a rotating city.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Now it's the 8th annual year. This has been a success.
Yes,
I
should be
better-
good with the new marina. It
Yeah.
should be very good this year.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning the new marina.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And may you state your name and address for the record, please, so I can get
It's
that. on
Lou
file?
Frattarelli, 2 Hilltop Street, Bristol, Rhode Island.
Any other discussion?
I think this is like always a great event and
Yeah.
it's like amazing. It's been 8 years and hopefully you advertise it through like the people that come to dock at the new dock or the transient voters too. 'cause
Now, hopefully we
that's one of the
get
things
more
that
boats
people-
for the blessing this year,
Yeah.
so it'll
Yeah,
be
and also,
nice.
Like the dinner, like the clam boil is like a great thing. People always looking for like community events to go to if they're like on vacation here or whatever.
Oh, let's hope for good weather.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're bringing back that stuffy competition because I know Mary's a judge on that. So you have to
Yes.
watch it. You have to be very careful. Yeah.
I think Tim is a judge as well.
It should be good. A lot of people wanted it back, so now that things are kind of back to normal, it should work out good.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hearing no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D5. This is Zach Rivers from RIRO Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Judge Roy Bean Salon at 1 State Street. This is a request for the State Street Seasonal Outdoor Expansion Alcohol Service License. You'll also note that there's a late item agenda from the Economic Development Officer in regard to the American with Disabilities Act obligations. That will be for D5, 6, 7, and 8.
Mr. Solicitor, anything that, can you summarize this? There is quite a significant response here and document.
So under state law and statutes, if a establishment, a restaurant wants to expand into public space under our ordinance and under state statute for a temporary seasonal alcohol permit, they may do so with the permission of the town council. So you have the ability to listen and decide whether or not you want to grant this. Additionally, there has been, in fact, a ruling that came through the AG's office and through the Department of Justice, reminding all of the cities and towns that any such expansions must be ADA compliant. And so if in fact you were to grant the expansion license that they're seeking, then the administration would have to ensure that the proposal is completely ADA compliant.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, based on all the recommendations, I'll make a motion to approve based on the positive recommendations that we've gotten in. The establishment must adhere to the American with Disabilities Act's obligations for outside dining. That's a must. And they must adhere to the chief's police recommendation that the alcohol must stay within that premise of the outside dining area.
May I also suggest that I believe at our last meeting, we said that we would refer to the administrator. So maybe part of that motion, I like what you've had. So
Okay.
maybe that the permit would be contingent upon the outside approved by, how do I say this? Approved permit for outside dining by administration. And it sounds like you've done some work on that. It's almost done, or if not done.
Yeah, they're underway. So it's through Viewpoint, which is our permitting process. The businesses have already started the process. In fact, they've hired an architect, and we've gotten a preliminary plan to the building official. So as soon as the plan is approved by the building official, goes to the other departments, and we approve, and they get their permit. So I'm assuming the motion would be to approve the outdoor alcohol license pending the approval of the outdoor expansion license.
It's a nice way of putting it.
So moved.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? So I'm just real quick is that obviously I didn't vote for this last time, but I really believe in our process. And this council voted 3-2 to approve it. So I'm going to abstain from the vote because I don't need to reiterate all the things I said before, but I'll say again that I believe in our process and this council wanted to move forward. So we are. So any other discussion?
May I just ask a question? Is it not a good idea to do these all together? Because everything's pretty much the same for all of them. the four of them.
Mr. Solicitor, any reason we can't do that?
None whatsoever.
So why don't we should we have a motion to include them all together? Is that necessary? Why don't we,
I would-
Yeah.
Tim,
I
maybe you
would-
can add to your motion instead of.
I'll amend my motion to include, what do we have, D5, D6, D7, and
D8.
D8.
Yes, I believe that's everything.
That's part of the motion. So moved.
Is there a second? Mary Ed?
Yes. that's
Okay,
right.
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
I abstain as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is E1. This is the dancing and entertainment license renewals for 2022 through 2023. You will note that there is a letter from Howard Sutton, the president of the Stone Harbor, requesting modifications to the outdoor portion of the dancing and entertainment license.
We did. I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
And the request would be that Fridays and Saturdays, that the outdoor music would cease at 11 versus 12 PM.
I think that's like very reasonable. I don't think that, I think as you pointed out in the letter, that
I agree.
it kind of just was an overflow from when it wasn't that way. And all of our other, like, wedding venues and things are 11. So I mean, I think that's a great point, and thank you for bringing it up.
And I think it's another point that they don't have to stop. They can go indoors. So if they want to, that's just outside that they
And be
need
open
to
as long
close
as their
up.
license
Yeah,
allows, right?
right,
That's a great
right.
point.
Yeah.
Great point.
So with that, I would approve those licenses with the 11, for the outdoor, with the 11 o'clock end time,
Second.
Saturday and Friday and Saturday. I
So
believe it's hopefully-
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion made by Mary, seconded by Tony to approve with the 11 o'clock condition already stated. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I just wanted to say-
Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. No, no.
I just hesitant, I was just like looking at this quickly, like, is it already automatically 10? Because it's pointed out on the weekdays, because it was pointed out in the letter that the Mount Hope Farm, like with the wedding venues, basically are 10 on Sunday through Thursday and 11 on Friday and Saturday. So I just want to make sure that there's not a loophole in the midweek on the outside. So I would, I'd be happy to like amend my own motion of just like we grant these with the outside entertainment ending at 10 o'clock on Sunday through Thursday and 11 on the weekends.
So
Clerk?
currently, the way that the ordinance reads for the dancing and entertainment license, it would cease at 10 PM Sunday through Thursday and 12 PM on Fridays and
Okay,
Saturdays.
so we're just correcting the Friday.
So
and
it's
Saturday. Okay, that was
on the
sure.
outdoor
Okay,
portion,
make sure.
correct.
Okay, perfect.
So for the record, it was exactly what you stated during,
Right, the first
would you say it one more time for the record?
So during the weekdays, from Sunday through Thursday, entertainment would cease by 10 PM. And then on Fridays and Saturdays, the outdoor entertainment would cease by 11 PM.
So in my original motion.
Correct.
Correct, the Friday and Saturday.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Everybody
that's
okay?
my understanding. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is E2. This is the public laundry license renewals for 2022, 2023.
I make a motion based on the recommendations to approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim
Mary, yeah.
to approve. Any discussion?
Just briefly, it was stated that none of these folks have been violated any of, they've been in compliance with all the rules and regulations. So we should applaud them for that.
Well put. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F2. This is Ron Maderos of 82 High Street. This is a request for the removal of the accessible parking space. This is first reading.
Motion to approve the first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve the first reading. Any discussion?
Thank you. This is a prime spot and, we know parking is tight, so we appreciate it.
Hearing no other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item of business is G1. This is the Historic Districts Commission. And this is for 2 terms set to expire. One is for a full member expiring June 2025, and one is for auxiliary member with the term to expire in June 2025. We have Mary Millard of 620 Hope Street. This is with interest in reappointment, and we have Manny Sunny Furtado, 148 High Street, not seeking reappointment.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Manny Furtado's no, right. He's obviously doesn't want to run again. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So resignation with a letter of thanks and appoint Mary Millard.
We had a motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to reappoint Mary Millard and to accept Sonny Furtado's letter of resignation with a letter of thanks. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then I will say, on behalf of this council, thank you to not only HDC members, but all boards and commissions. Some hard, some very hard. So we very much appreciate your efforts and energies. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is H1. This is Police Chief Lynch, and this is regards to a council resolution in support to amend the non-emergency police powers and authorize the mutual aid agreement. This is continued from June 1st, 2022. You will also note a late item received with an amended mutual agreement.
Chief?
First, I'd like to thank our solicitor, Mike Rosillo, on behalf of the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Organization. Mike actually drafted this ordinance for all of the 39 cities and towns in the higher education. So our own solicitor was the mechanic of this adoption. So early on as taking oath as the police chief, we looked at the security detail for the 4th of July parade and the different events. And I had conversations with Paul Dutra from the trust. And anytime that we bring in an outside resource, we should look to have people that are post certified. That's the police officer standards and training. That means that that officer is certified in the state of Rhode Island to act as a peace officer. So knowing that we did not always have post-certified police officers or officers from Rhode Island, I looked at what would I need to do to amend the legislation. I had conversations with our solicitor, and I learned that I would need to amend the Rhode Island general law as it pertains to non-emergency police powers. If I was to call in an emergency tonight, anybody from any jurisdiction in Rhode Island could respond to Bristol. And in a non-emergency situation, a college commencement, a special detail, traffic, the repaving Metacom or Hope Street, or the parade or a different event, the law did not allow me to utilize an outside police department unless they boarded us, Warren and Portsmouth. They don't have ample services to send to us on those particular dates. So we took the issue back to the Police Chiefs Association, and I do want to thank Representatives June Speakman and Susan Donahue, who helped me push the legislation through the General Assembly. I testified in House Committee on this, and we were fortunate that we had the legislation changed. What the legislation required us to do was to bring it back to our governing body in each city and town and pass a resolution based on an agreement. So as an association with the chiefs, we decided to make one uniform agreement. So we weren't having 39 different agreements, 39 different solicitors take on this, and we've got one global document. You'll see on the 4th of July parade that the Cranston Police Department will be sending 3 motor officers. This change in this signing of this agreement will now allow those departments to come over and to help us out on the parade. So that's the genesis behind it. And it's in during non-emergency situations that we can share services and pool all of the services throughout the state. So I want to thank a lot of people for working hard, our solicitor and our state representatives, and certainly folks on the council.
Thank you, Chief. Mary?
So I think it's a great idea. I know we talked about this before when it first was presented. And it's nice that there's like one agreement for everybody so that it just makes it a lot easier. Could you just remind me of what happens if you don't have enough people? Like, you know, for a lot of times we've had to rely on like Bristol County, Massachusetts, Sheriff's Department. I believe they're done with the concerts tonight. I mean, so if you don't get enough people and 4th of July is a busy holiday everywhere, not quite like Bristol, but everywhere in Rhode Island, are you able to bring those people in if you need them?
I am. This agreement will now allow that. And just a point of clarification, the sheriffs that you do see here, that'll be here on the 3rd and the 4th are Rhode Island sheriffs. I worked with the administrator's office and Governor McKee, and we signed an MOU with the Rhode Island sheriffs. We're very fortunate, you know, to have those folks here in town. They were fantastic. Last year was our first year that we worked out an agreement with them, and I'm very pleased.
No one from Massachusetts would be allowed to work anymore, correct?
No.
Not it?
Mr. Solicitor, what is the motion if this council chooses to adopt it?
My recommendation would be that the motion be to adopt the mutual aid agreement as presented. As the chief said, we did get the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust involved because the trust insures just about every community in the state of Rhode Island. We did get their input. The changes that have been made since you last saw this basically were to refer to that state enabling legislation, which the chief mentioned earlier, and also to make it very clear that only an officer in charge has the legal ability to bring on assistance, that like a dispatcher or someone on the scene, unless it was quite the emergency, would have to go up the chain of command first before someone else would be dispatched. But the trust has approved this form of the agreement, and all the insurance that is behind us will transfer to anyone who happens to be in our town working from another community.
I think this is a good resolution. I'll make a motion to support this resolution as stated.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony. Misspeaking this evening. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you for hard work, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, Mike, for your hard work.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is H2. This item was on the last agenda of June 1st. This was for an application for the zoning map change of Stephen Genario for the Genario Family Realty Trust at 374 and 380 Metacom Avenue. They are requesting that the public hearing scheduled for July 13th be rescheduled to August 3rd.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to reschedule the public hearing to July 13th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I1. This is public notice from the CRMC in regard to the Roger Williams University Department of Biology for the Educational Research Aquaculture Project at 10 Ferry Road that requires response before June 30th.
Is this a receive and file?
It is.
Because there's no action being taken unless we disagree, correct?
Correct.
We just need to receive and file.
So moved.
Second with the comment, Mr.
Motion
Chairman.
made by Tim, seconded by Tony to receive and file. Discussion.
I'm glad to read some of this here because it initially brought me some concern to the commercial fishermen and how that would impact, the area there as well, the access to the area. But I'm much more comfortable once I read through it. And it says specifically, it is important to note that no shellfish or aquaculture products grown on the lease will be sold in a commercial market. Excess oysters produced through our research and demonstration activities will be donated to local nonprofit groups. And they state some, Rhode Island fishermen. Then they mentioned the Town of Warren Restoration Program. I'm wondering what happened to Bristol. That's the only piece that sort of, could we benefit some of the nonprofit groups in Bristol?
You bring up a great point, which was our Harbor Commission, along with our Harbor, Greg Marsili, Harbor Master, had those suggestions in there to make sure that we weren't unduly burdening our fishermen, our local fishermen. So, and fishermen surrounding. So, was there any other discussion?
Just, I think it's going to be a great educational opportunity. Hopefully we can tie in the Bristol Warren Regional School Department here because I think it's, they're going to be doing a lot of good research down there.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
I do also want to note there is a late agenda item there from the Harbor Commission meeting minutes that they had on June 13th that provided to me. It's a late item of their discussion about the CRMC approval
Thank you.
about the spat bags. I'm
Oh,
not sure
yeah,
what spat
here it
bags
is.
are.
Anybody can speak to spat bags?
I have.
I know what spats are, but I don't think they have anything to do with spat bags. Okay. Hearing no other dialogue, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I2. This is Director Williamson. And this is in regards to the Amendment 1 of the subrecipient agreement for Rhode Island DOT with the town of Bristol and Portsmouth and the A&R Marine Corporation for the Prudence Island Ferry.
Diane.
Thank you. Thank you. So last year, you might recall, the town entered into an agreement with the DOT for Prudence Island Ferry dock improvements at the Bristol terminal using state and federal funds that the ferry had received. Since that time, they've gotten additional state and federal funds. So the scope of the grant agreement has been amended to include work that A&R Marine proposes to take in the, on the Bristol terminal, as well as ferry dock improvements for the ferry terminal located on Prudence Island in the town of Portsmouth. So we needed to have the agreement amended to include the town of Portsmouth as a signatory now and add the work on the Prudence Island terminal, the additional work to the Bristol terminal, and then they moved the performance end date to December 30, 2024. So just to reiterate, this is to utilize state and federal funds. We are helping only for some administrative support, and there's no other funding from the town. So the solicitor's office has reviewed this and approved the document, and I would need an authorization for the chairman and the town solicitor to sign the amendment.
Second.
There's a motion made by Mary, seconded by Tony to support and authorize. Is there any discussion?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, the work that will be done in our terminal is just the pilings. Is that the only thing that I'm
No,
reading here? Is there
no.
something else in addition to that?
So there is. Let me just find it here. So in Bristol, they're going to do a wooden passenger shelter waiting area.
Okay,
They're going to do a wooden, no, they were proposing to do a wooden storage shed, which is no longer on the list. They're doing wooden safety railings on the perimeter of the dock, metal safety gates on the transfer bridge, and then they're going to do, the additional work is prefabricated rubber steel head piles and the replacement of damaged wooden piles in the current pile clusters, which the harbor master is very happy about. So those are all the projects that they've got on the list for,
Diane, it's just getting better and better down there.
right?
Right.
Right.
Really nice.
no, it certainly is appreciated to see all the improvements there. So
Yes, yes,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Is there any other discussion? I'm sorry, my notes were poor here. Was that, whose motion was that? please?
Mary and Tony.
Thank you, Mary and Tony. No other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I3, and this is the State Street outside design project.
Well, Mr. Chairman, well, they say it takes a village. I just want to first thank the restaurant owners, non-business owners, the administration, my colleagues for this input, because this proposed next steps wouldn't happen without all the input that you guys put into this. So I've stated in this document, the State Street outside designs next step. After the last meeting, there was some agreement that a permanent long-term outside design to ensure the ordinance, section 25-16 would work for our community. And we have some next steps. So I don't know if you want me to read it into the record, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to read them into the record, or we can just have a discussion about each bullet. It's
Maybe we can ask if there's questions and if there was anything in particular that you wanted to call focus to.
just wanted to call to focus that we'd like to direct, or if my colleagues agree, kind of move this to the town administrator, community director of community development, economic development director, and the finance area to really work with outside consultant engineers to design a seasonal outdoor dining for State Street between Hope Street and Thames. So aesthetically to incorporate the following requirements. And a lot of these requirements go with the aesthetics with our town. They incorporate meaningful and input for from the restaurant owners. So we're gonna need to get that input and dialogue from them. We're gonna review the design and the data from the outside dining sites in similar communities. The design must be consistent with the downtown architectural style, adhere to the ADA guidelines, must have appropriate traffic barriers. We're going to review that fee structure to ensure it's in line with the other businesses and the town. I know Tony and Chairman, you guys had expressed that area needed to look at. So we're hoping to look at that and then come back with a better fee structure there. Explore re-engineering the traffic and the parking on State Street to improve parking impact. Explore outdoor displays. This would include planters, trees, treescapes, include input from area businesses and residents, due diligence to incorporate any existing town-approved outdoor seating designs, pedestrian safe and bike racks, develop a metrics for success, and a comprehensive trash and recycling solution for the design and dining area. So those are some key items that will need to be looked into. They're going to be investigated, and then they're going to be brought back to us for us to, for review and approval at the first meeting in February of 2023, and allow for us to work through that. And hopefully we can get a design together that would really work for the community and everybody. So that's the hope.
Could I just say that, you know, the conversation I had today helped clarify this, that maybe wasn't as clear on the aesthetics aspect of this,
Okay.
because I kind of see it as two distinct components. The first, one of the components is to do policy guidelines.
Right.
And that really came to my mind after the last meeting, when there was a lot of discussion among the council about precedent setting and so forth. And what do we say to other businesses and so forth? Well, we with the sidewalk dining ordinance, we're able to say, if you meet these basic criteria, like this width, this kind of, you know, parking, so forth and so on, I think we absolutely have to work hand in hand with a policy that comes up with those, like what is expected with ADA, what is expected with the street width, and, you know, keeping some parking for businesses that are not restaurants, which has been a huge issue there, because especially that area, because it's been very densely populated.
Right.
And I think that we need to really do that. And then the other part of it, which is what Tim just referred to is, you know, what is it going to look like? And that may not be applicable to other parts of town. You know what I mean? So this is very specific to this particular area.
Correct.
And, you know, so, you know, get the water view, blah, blah, blah. Like, it would be different if it was going to be on another street. You know, if there was such a request, if they met that minimal threshold. So I think that is, and also the thing that's very important to me, and I don't know how this work group will be more like a work group. It's not going to be appointed by us, is that there is serious and meaningful participation from the restaurants and the business owners and some of the property owners on this area, because they're the ones that sometimes we say, and we've seen this many times, sometimes it's here with our own, you know, trying to rush through and get something done. And other times it's like, yeah, everybody's on board. Well, the restaurants are all on board, but not all the other businesses. And in the end, it's going to be the businesses, you know, their business, whether it's parking, whether that generates more foot traffic, et cetera, that are going to, you know, benefit or not benefit. And it's also going to be the restaurant owners that are going to have to pay for this, because while the town is willing to provide like technical support in terms of, you know, if it needs to be re-engineered, the ADA issue. When Tim and I first went and looked at that, we're like, well, it'll be easy enough to just like some of those handicap spaces are just like horrendous location. Like, oh, we should just move those. Well, we found out it's not that easy to do.
Right.
So I think it has to be specific, but they're the ones going to have to pay for this. They're going to have to pay whatever the correct fee is going to be, which,
Yep.
you know, a lot of people had commented to us that it was just way too inexpensive. And also that, you know, whatever the aesthetics will be, is it fencing, is it whatever, flowers, they're going to have to pay for that as well. So I really think it's super important that a work group with people who are interested, that you reach out to all of them and that happens, because it's really those people that are the most impacted. If this is something that we go in our guidelines and it goes somewhere else in the community, well, then we'll have to address that particular area. So, and then the last thing was on the February, I think last time we mentioned like the late January, early February meeting, because, you know, we need to get the approvals from the council, and then they need to order everything. And if things don't change with supply chains, et cetera, it's going to take a while to do all of this. So we really want to make sure that they can all be ready to open in May. And having said all of that, you know, we recognize that this year, you know, it was because of all this, it was really almost impossible to get it to be perfect. But I think it's going to be a lot better than it was the last year or two. So there has been some design work already, but this, really is trying to get this, if we're gonna do it, let's do it type of thing. And then next year will be better in a more permanent solution.
And this is a very step process, which is nice. And I think it's going to set us up for success where, before we didn't know a lot of the unknowns that we discovered, right, Mary? I
Yes,
mean,
I think, I think.
this is
so,
going to
yeah.
be a much better process.
That's what I think. But might be-
Tony?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions for clarification. At the beginning, there's a statement agreeing regarding a permanent long-term, okay? Then on the next paragraph down, proposed next steps, we go to design a seasonal outdoor. Okay, which one are we looking for? Are we looking for something that's permanent? Are we looking for a
We're looking
seasonal?
for permanent, and it would be seasonal that would go
Seasonal
along with the
permanent.
ordinance because the ordinance right now has a sunset clause and it's only set for a certain amount of months. So it's like a permanent seasonal outdoor dining experience.
Again, we would anticipate that this would be something, whatever is put there would
Yeah.
be removed when the season ends.
Right. Oh,
So
yeah,
if there's a-
absolutely.
If there's a floor, so the design would stay the same for the next year, like would be approved, we would hopefully the following year tweak it, like it didn't quite work out. But that, so in some of the designs that we have seen, some of the ones that I've seen are where they put a floor that matches up to the curbing, for example. All that would have to be removable.
Right.
And so that when this ends, I think it's in, I can't remember if it was like at the end of October.
I think it was
is,
November. Yeah.
That this all goes away and the parking spots go back to regular way.
Yeah. Sorry, Tony. Yeah. It would be something that would have to be pulled away and then
So it's
parking would be
seasonal.
restored,
It's
but it'd be
seasonal.
seasonal.
Seasonal,
But it'd be
yes.
like a
Mhm.
permanent ongoing,
Right.
obviously with, if everything was going well down there as far as no
Okay,
issues, right?
Reoccurring season.
great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I may continue, you made a statement here in the first bullet that it says ideally this should be a working group of the DBMA. I agree 100%. If this should be an initiative, it should come from them to come to the town. As Mary stated,
Yeah.
we should come up with what are the premises, just like we do for sidewalk use right now.
Mhm.
Likewise, should be the same, but it should not be the town undertaking this task.
Exactly.
It should
Exactly.
be the business come to the town and say, okay, does this meet the
Mhm.
criteria that we have established? Because I don't see the town being the folks in charge of this and say, I mean, we're talking about a limited area. It's not town-wide where the policy would be town-wide, but I don't see us, being the folks to do it. Plus, I haven't heard any funds that we have budget for this.
Right.
So it sort of concerns that we throw in something at the administrator to say, okay, go ahead, take charge, do something when we have not provided a source of funding.
Right.
This was not part of the budget. I don't see that we should be engaging at this point,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and you're spot on in regards to including the BMA, because they're in the weeds of the day-to-day with their customers, so we would want the design that's going to work and increase revenue down there, right? Did reach out to Julie in finance, and we talked about the meals and hotel tax, which we are doing extremely well on. So this would only increase those meals and hotel tax area revenues. Also, we'd be able to look at the fee structure for the permitting. In bullets, if you go down the bullets, we're going to look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullets, review the fee structure. So if we increase that fee structure down there, we'll also be getting some revenue from that as well. So if we're able to put some money towards the consultants, which will ultimately engage the BMA and the public and make a design, architectural design that's actually right for the community and it's achievable and it can hit all those benchmarks, then I think we're in for success. But that's something, again, Tony, we're going to need to turn to Julie, look at that, look at where we are for that. And we're coming at the end of our budget right now. We're going into a new budget. So let's see what's out there.
I think one of the things that came up as we were looking at this, this, it sort of became a little more complicated than we thought it was going to be, because, we were under the impression like everybody was on board and then some retailers were not on board. And then we went down there, and as we looked at it, especially in regards to ADA compliance, Steve had come down with us, and we've talked to him, we talked to the police chief. I think there's a willingness to, not maybe every year, but to look at like whether it needs to be architectural drawing or engineer to look at this to make sure that whatever we do for the street in terms of parking, particularly in the handicap parking, that it's done correctly. And I think that's where, like, that's why I call it like technical, like the technical aspect, we would contribute to this project. But, it's a hill, there's certain things that we would have to look at. I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, I'm speaking for me, but that was sort of my interpretation of what we heard in the various discussions that we've had with this. So is there a budget item? Have we brought it up? Has somebody come up with like, we need $500 or $5,000? No one has done that yet. But the idea of like, if we're going to do it, let's do it right and make sure that our
Right.
ADA compliance and other things are in place correctly. And as we heard at the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about ADA. It's like the handicap space is being too narrow, not ramp, not enough space for the ramps, things like that. So, I mean, I think we're going to have to play some role, but it's certainly not in like what it's going to look like. That's why I go back to my original point of they have to be very seriously involved in what
Right.
it's going to be, because what it looks like, if it's going to be a floor, if there's not going to be a floor, if that, a lot of that, I think, if it could be a public-private partnership, if there's some sort of grant out there, but basically the businesses are going to have to take this on. The business meaning the restaurants, not
Right.
the other businesses, but the other businesses have to be happy that they have some parking as well. I don't, it's kind of a long answer. It's not a direct answer, but that's like where we are as of now.
Right. No, I still have some concerns, and I know there was a comment made about that I was being short-sighted. I enjoy hearing those things.
I didn't say that.
No, none of you here. No, it came from someplace else. But the fact is, when we distributing tax dollars, for the few and not the whole, it certainly concerns me. So I'm not sure where the sightness is on that point.
And Tony, your concerns are being echoed right in this document because we listened to you at the last council meeting. You brought up some very good reasons of your reservations on this, and we're hoping to answer those questions, right? We're exploring. We're going into this. We want success, but we need the tools to make sure this is successful. And so I don't think you were short-sighted at all.
Right, because I just want to make sure that I don't see the town be on a hook and be responsible for a structure that we put up. Even if we provide engineering, then it's okay, we have the liability. There should be, just like all the sidewalk users, it's the responsibility of each establishment to make sure that they provide the safety guards and to avoid any entries or liability, I should say. So that's sort of, still a bit of a concern on my end.
Can I just be sure, just be clear that we're clear, like for this year, because none of this is in place yet, like the town will bring those barriers down. I know they have them somewhere, but we don't even know what those barriers are gonna look like in the future. Because right now, the ones that we have, that were there like last year, the year before, they take up a lot of space.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there may be something else, but so this year is a little different than what the ultimate should be. It may not be perfect, but much better.
Councilman, I just wanted to share with you that I had some of the same concerns. And one of the things that kind of has been on my mind a little bit, I support the whole project in principle. I think that this is great. I think it's exciting. I feel like we listened to some of the downtown businesses when they came to us with some ideas, and we're moving forward on that. But I definitely agree with you that the burden should be on the downtown businesses and the users of this for paying for it. And I'm not necessarily sure about this, but have we come to, is this going to be like a structure that's owned by the town then, and we're going to be responsible for removing it? Or are we going to be placing the burden on the users, the businesses for?
I think that I'm just going to give you my answer. I think that in the discussion about this, even prior to us being involved, I think that the restaurants, it's not just, it's the restaurants. Let's not say the businesses. will assume the responsibility of purchasing this stuff and taking care of it and so forth. And I think that's something that would have to be clear. And it is going to come to us for a final, whoever is us is next winter, but for a final review. And that needs to be clear that, you know, can they negotiate something where the town might help? I don't know, but that's not going to be our responsibility to set it up for them or to pay for it or do anything like that. So, you know, they need to really be thoughtful and they need to be engaged as to why they're going to go this design, what else is out there, because this one might be fantastic, but it might cost $10,000 to, you know, to have it in pieces, where this other design is really nice too, and it's like much more affordable. Because, you know, we want everybody to be successful, including the town on the restaurant tax as well, the
Yeah.
food and beverage tax.
Yeah.
So
And Councilman Lay, I would agree with Councilwoman Perla on this. It would be something that they would be responsible for. If there was a hurricane rolling in or a major storm rolling in, it wouldn't be on the administration to start pulling all that stuff out and cleaning that up. They would have to be preparing for the storm and pulling it down and making sure it's all right. I think it's the right thing for them to do. And it's also their responsibility. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you notice in this, already in this particular, on the item about the liquor the liquor outside,
Mhm.
they all had in their packet, they all had the $1 million liability policy,
Yeah.
naming the town as a co-insured on their policy. So, I mean, those are all things that would be, I think, would required, and that's the things that the administration and would need to make sure that's included in any, you know, when we go forward with that.
So this is, if I may, very similar to, say, if a project was coming in front of the planning board. So, and what I mean by that is the restaurant or restaurants would come in front of this council with a proposal, and that proposal would be, prior to that proposal, we need to come up with a policy, some parameters. It's ADA compliant, and you mentioned a great one just now with the hurricane. You know, it's got to be hurricane compliant, I suppose. So with all the guidelines, so we'll set a set of guidelines through the administrator's office, whether it's he and his staff, along with possibly a consultant, and there's probably dollars involved with that would set up a guideline. And then the business or businesses would come in front of us with a proposal that sits inside those guidelines. Is that
That's how
it's
I
an
see it.
oversimplification?
That's how I
is
see
that-
it, yes.
No, that's correct.
That's what I think.
And that those dollars and those responsibilities are those of the business. But the initial policy and all of that is you're proposing be the responsibility of the town. Is that
We would need just like our outside dining, just like our flag policy, we need something so that
something clear?
when something comes up and it
Okay.
doesn't meet anywhere near that, you do a tiny little street that's, you know, 14 feet wide. Or I don't even know, it's a small one, like an arrow. And I shouldn't go into numbers because that's not my best bet.
What I wanted to see from this, and all of that makes sense to me, but I also wanted to see us look at the larger, and does it need to be separate or can be included with this? What I mean by that is other portions of the town. If a business comes to us and says, I'm also interested in doing something like this, I think that should be part of our parameters. I think that should be
Oh,
part of this.
absolutely.
I liked your point, Mary, that very much like our zoning is specific to each area. I don't think we can come up with huge guidelines, but I think we can come up with minimum requirements. So for example, a couple of you have brought up the sidewalk use, right? We have X amount of feet and X amount of tables and all of that stuff. So that's a great example. I think there should be parameters that say you have to have at least this much space and you must have X and whatever it
Right,
happens
right,
to be.
right, right.
I like this and I like the focus here, but I think we should also, if we're going to do this and have those proposals no later than February, I think it should include the town as a whole. So if there's another business that's interested in coming to us, at least in basic parameters, we can say, these are yeses and nos.
Well, I think the policy is townwide. I think that's
yeah,
what, I
okay.
think this is
Okay.
what, like I had spoken to Nathan earlier, and I used aesthetic, and that was finally
You did?
like when he realized, and that's when I realized this wasn't clear about that. So the
Sorry.
policy would be townwide, so that, you know, if you have a St. Elizabeth Street, well, clearly, there's no room. It's too narrow. So if we come up with whatever number, just like on the sidewalk use permit, that is townwide. So
Gotcha.
anybody else that wants to
Thank
come
you.
to us will have like, here are the parameters. You don't meet the threshold. But in terms of like the aesthetic value, like, you know, that might have like a little bit of a nautical look there. I have no
That'll be a
preconception.
case by case kind of
Right,
thing.
versus like if you would do something on, by Unity Park, it may be like more industrial, kind of something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that that is, the policy guidance is like, just, be really clear in the minutes that that is policy guidance for the town. That's like, if you want to do something on the street and you want to rent or lease this space for the summer,
Right.
this is what you have to, the minimum that you have to do.
Mr. Administrator, is there anything that you wanted to add since this is going to be coming to you in your department, departments plural?
No, I'll meet with Director Williamson, and I'm just not sure if this is something that we can handle internally or if we need to get a consultant to help us with. It could be a little bit complicated.
It would seem like a consultant would be extremely appropriate.
Yeah. So if I got it right, we would set the guidelines and the parameters, and if a business wanted to take advantage of this expansion, they would have to abide by within the parameters.
And then come in front
Yeah,
of this
go-
council.
And I think the policy would become an
Correct.
ordinance. The policy would
Yeah,
probably become an ordinance,
exactly.
just like our other ordinances.
Right.
I'm gonna take a guess here for a consultant here, probably $10,000. Diane, if you could help me with that. No,
I had somebody do that, but I kept raising it as I was hearing them.
Townwide.
Yeah, it kept going up by 5. I mean, I think in consideration of this being more of a policy memo, I guess is the best way to say it. I think 10 might be good. I guess I was expecting there'd be more of like engineering plans drawn, but it sounds like that would be something you put on the
Consultant.
on the
No, on
On the
the responsibility
restaurants.
of the restaurant or the business, we should say, right?
yeah,
So
we-
you'd be setting like a best practices guidebook. I'm kind of picturing in my mind almost like something that would maybe even have like photographs or like, stock specifications of, this is what we would okay on this particular block, or this is what we'd want to see on this particular block. And give them kind of examples of things that would be approvable, along with the basic minimum standards for, like you said, the threshold. So you don't get proposals that you just can't, that just aren't workable.
Like, I don't even.
So
know
the
if it would have to be that
aesthetics,
kind of like schematic by certain neighborhood type of thing. I think, I think that the key things are parking, like, if you're near like public parks or you're near something else, like, how much parking can you give up? I mean, we talked a lot about parking in this particular neighborhood, and it's definitely an issue. But it's sort of very densely populated and contained, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I think those are the things that we would need help on, and just input, like, could be a lot of the department heads sort of brainstorming an initial, what it is that something like this would be like. I don't remember how we went about and did the ordinance for the sidewalk use. But this would ultimately be the ordinance that would do that,
Right.
so for this project. So I think it's like however you went about doing that, it's sort of the same format. And I think it's less about like what a design could look like, because it's really not that many, as I'm thinking about places, really not that many places that have multiple places in one location that that need to kind of look the similar. And, like they think they learned last year that they were not going to put tents up because the wind takes them all and all that stuff. So, and it ends up looking messy, that type of thing. I mean, I would say if all of a sudden a major storm kicks up that, veers off in the wrong direction, then maybe the town will have to help them get something, batten down the hatches a little bit like we would anybody else. But, so, yeah, I'm not sure if it'd be like quite as detailed, but I think it's more like the sidewalk use ordinance.
Okay, so then I guess we could go with 10,000 and see.
Mr. Administrator?
And I'm thinking, I have to get this out of the way. This was not there's not a unanimous consensus with this. So we're gonna have to get some public engagement, which is gonna take time. So I would say $20,000, and we'll come back to the council. We'll give you progress reports for a consulting engineer, just so that we can. I hate to try to get this started, and we're short on money to get it completed. So I'd say 20,000, not to exceed $20,000 for a consultant to help with it. Again, I think there's going to be a great deal of things that we're gonna have to get around and so forth. When you bring in parking, the ADA issues, the appearance, traffic safety, pedestrian safety, all the stuff that if we're gonna do it, we all acknowledge, we need to do it right. So let's get a professional, and unfortunately, it's gonna cost us something. But as Councilman Sweeney said, hopefully we'll be able to recoup some of that money with increased sales.
I mean, I'm surprised by that amount. I think that's a lot, to be honest, for this project. You know, because I'm not sure like how much, but you know, that's something. Like, I don't know if we have to approve that right now or can discuss it, or you can maybe talk to some people about what this might be. I mean, you know, right now we've got like a tentative plan for this year. And I mean, in the next month or so, everybody's super busy with the summer and 4th of July. So it's nothing's going to really happen like in the next between now and the next council meeting, for example.
I think Mary we would all just need an estimate
Yeah.
at this point, not really allocate any cash at this point. We just want to see,
Yeah.
I mean, what something
Yeah.
like this would cost, because we went from just State Street to now townwide. So we're kind of looking at a bigger picture, and that's great.
But the
And I'm all
policy,
for
but
it,
did you
but
do,
let's,
like-
the policy we want to.
Yeah, but did you do engineering? Like when you did the ordinance for sidewalk use? Did that cost money no?
I really don't recall how that came about. I think it might have been.
I'm sorry, but this is not sidewalk use. This is a street. This is a
Right.
parking lot. These are ADA spaces.
Right.
It's not a sidewalk. This is a serious project for us.
No, I know
It's
that.
a
I
little
understand
bit
that.
beyond what we normally do. We need a consultant for it. If
Right.
you want to do it, you got to pay for it. Sorry.
Yep.
Right, but we just need to, I don't think we just ballpark it right now.
Right, but with that, you know, I don't want to lay out another layer of things here, but when we're talking about zoning, the areas, we can't just not violate any town ordinance that we may have and just say, you know, well, let's just do this, you know, on State Street. I mean, we have zoning ordinances, you know, how does the zoning board weigh in on this? Should they? Okay. I mean, we changing a zoning area technically. You know, that's what we're doing at this point,
How do you figure that? I'm just curious. I don't.
because
understand.
you're modifying it for a use of other than parking and traffic flow.
It also triggers the use of the actual establishment. You're increasing the capacity of the establishment. So there's a business regulation component to this. That's why it's not as simple as putting some tables out on a sidewalk.
Well, and it's- yes.
It triggers a number of different technicalities and issues.
Diane, you have a great
Yeah.
line, which is the Rubik's Cube, right? You get all the colors on one side and everything changed, then you fix it and it's, the other sides are all wrong again. So how about if we do this? If this council wants to take next steps on this, we're not committing to a dollar figure this evening, or we don't need to this evening. Certainly, we don't want to push this off too far, because then we're all struggling to have an end result or end product at that point. So if there's a general agreement that we're going to come up with parameters and guidelines for next steps on this for the town and minimum requirements such and so forth, the administrator and director of community development and others will come back to this council with dollar figures and proposals for a consultant. And then ultimately we'll have discussion on, Tony, bring up great points. There's lots of great points about how things affect other things, whether it's zoning or business regulation, liquor licenses. There's so many things. When we move one piece, a lot of actions happen from that. So how about this? If this council wants to take the next step, let's do that. Let's use this as our guidepost with the dialogue that's already been said. And then we can ask the administrator and his staff to come back to this council with some proposals for a consultant or consultants or whatever you believe is appropriate. And this council can take or not take the next step with that information. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, so this would be like the framework, like
Yeah.
what would it cost to operationalize this framework, for
Exactly.
example? On a two-pronged approach. One is the policy, the general policy that's become the ordinance for any street. You know, and maybe that you need to have more than one restaurant in an area to make this a viable thing. Like, who knows, like, you know, or not have any other outdoor seating, like, who knows what those options are, but somebody needs to discuss it. And then this whole, like, this particular project of what it's gonna look like in the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't we get a motion?
Yeah.
Tim?
Make a motion to approve the next steps, and we would refer this to the town administrator, Director of Community Development, Economic Development Director, and in finance to look into a policy and ways that we can look at a policy townwide that would incorporate the seasonal outdoor dining for State Street and townwide. And we have no set dollar limit at this point. We will look to get an estimate, and then we'll take the next steps from there. And anything else?
Anything else, Ed?
If I may respectfully, I think we're really going down a long path here. I would say that we should recommend it to the administrator and Diane, not develop policy, but just to explore, first of all, what the cost will be, what we need to do to set the perimeters to develop the policy.
Well, that's my motion, is to refer to that, refer it to them, Tony.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll
second.
Discussion. The clerk is feverishly writing.
We've had a lot of discussion.
Thank God it's on video. It's right
Strike the
back.
upper part.
It's a discussion. So I'm going to add discussion. I'm going to be a broken record, as I did not vote for this before, not because I want our businesses to succeed, but I believe that public land is that public land. And I don't think it should be, the use should be your ability to pay for it. And although I appreciate where my colleagues are coming from on that part of it, I need to keep saying that. But if this is going to go forward, we need a good policy. So I will support the next steps in coming up with a good policy if we're moving forward. Is there any other dialogue or discussion?
We're going to take small but rapid steps, and we'll get there, Chairman.
Hearing nothing else, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I can either go to J1 or if you want to go back to D2. I believe the applicant's attorney is.
DD5? I wanted to go to DD5.
DD2? Oh, D2?
No,
Richard Parenti, did you want to go back to D2? Oh, you want to go to DD5? Okay.
Right.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
We have a lot of citations and all of them are very important. One of them is for the gentleman that's sitting behind all of you, Reverend Henry Zeno. And in recognition of his 40th anniversary in his ordination, priestly ordination, we take this opportunity to thank him for his priestly ministry and his devotion to our community. And you can walk up as I'm saying this to you so everybody can see you, sir. You're used to being in front of everyone, I know. In presenting this citation, the Honorable Town Administrator and the Honorable Town Council of the Town of Bristol, State of Rhode Island, on behalf of all citizens of said town, offer sincerest congratulations and best wishes to Father Zeno upon this most auspicious occasion. Congratulations.
So I was ordained 40 years ago. I'm a kid from Providence, never been to Bristol. My parents said, we're not going to the parade, it's too much traffic, so that we never went there. And then when I was ordained a priest, I was assigned to Greenville, Rhode Island. And my mother said, well, what happens if you ever get assigned to some god awful place like Bristol, Rhode Island? And I said, oh, it'll be fine, Mom, don't worry about it. And then I was assigned here. I spent 10 years as the assistant from 1987 to 1997. I was sent to Tiverton, Rhode Island as pastor from 1997 to 2002. And I've been here as pastor since then. So it's been a wonderful time. I love Bristol. Bristol's home. I don't know anything else, but Bristol is home. So it's been a great joy to serve this community as a priest, to be with you for your joys and sorrows, successes and disappointments. And I hope that when I retire 4 to 6 years from now, I'll stay right here in Bristol because it's home. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
D2.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D2. This is Richard Currency from the Portside Tavern, 444 Thames Street. This is a request for sidewalk use and sidewalk alcohol service use license, and this is continued from June 1st.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Attorney Bruce Cox for the record, and I thank you very much for two things, your work
Thank
on town matters and for your accommodation of my love of sailing. It was a beautiful night for a sail, and despite some gear failure, we did all right. It didn't come in last, which is subjective, isn't it? If you didn't have Bristol Harbor, you wouldn't have this beautiful sailing. So I am here this evening with regards to the Portside Tavern and its request, the request of Richie Correnti, who's the owner, proprietor, a Bristol resident, and his beautiful wife Caroline, who's passing out a list or a signature sheets showing 217 people who feel that this use of this limited area on the sidewalk in front of the restaurant is appropriate. I've been listening to your discussion about the State Street exercise and the desire of many State Street establishments to take over large parking spaces and such as seating. Let's go and look at the Portside Tavern. It is on a flat level area. The sidewalk is 9 feet wide, except for the fact the town already put in tree footings that take up 4 feet of the space, which created a nice 5 foot wide sidewalk. It has been there for decades that way, and it has not, 5 feet has been adequate. The area that we're proposing is in the same 4 feet that the town has already surrendered to the trees. It aligns with them. It also aligns with the edge of the sidewalk. We've had the experience now of 2 years of tables being there. Look at the various commentary from the town's people, and were we proposing this for the first time? Were we not enjoying the benefit of 2 years of experience, of actual real world experience, I'd be saying, yeah, I see their points. I mean, we look at the memorandums of things that have not occurred. The memorandum, Chief Mello says it may inadvertently cause unintended safety consequences affecting pedestrian and vehicular traffic. None of that has occurred in 2 years. The code compliance officer and Lieutenant Wanzi speak basically the same thing. They're fearful that the door of a car might come up and hit a table, or people will have difficulty getting out. Richie, have you had any experience in 2 years? Have you had even one complaint of either of those events? No, I haven't. Those are legitimate thoughts, but they are speculation or their concerns, but we've demonstrated that they don't exist. Those are not problems. We've all had to deal with sometimes getting out of a car in front of the Burnside building, all along Hope Street. If you pull up alongside the embankment, you may have to stop for a moment someplace to let somebody get out and then parallel park against those embankments. It doesn't stop traffic. This is a low speed traffic area because of the pedestrians and because of people loving to come here and see Bristol and see, enjoy the ambiance of it. The issue is whether or not this fits, and it fits perfectly. It absolutely fits perfectly. The assertions have not occurred. The doors do not cause a problem. The people going into the restaurants and going up and down the sidewalk are not impeded in any way. Indeed, if one stops and looks at the site, you have cars parked all along the sidewalk there. People routinely go in between cars or go around to the ends of the cars. You have 217 signatures, and actually there's another 30 signatures over here. There's about 31 on a page, and there's another page saying that this is a good thing. The problems, the fears simply do not exist. You have people coming here, you look up at Providence, they're looking at closing Atwell's Avenue and allowing restaurants to randomly be up there on the street. Why? Because it's good for their businesses. What's good for the businesses is also good for the town and the citizens of the town. When you look at the 217, and there may be some duplications, but I was scanning and see who's there. Largely people from Bristol, but there are a lot of people from Bristol, from Warren, a lot of one couple from Johnston. It's coming here to Bristol, enjoy Bristol. This brings people to it. It's, the sidewalk cafes in Paris are famous. There's nothing wrong with sidewalk seating. And these seats are aligned such that there's no problem for pedestrian traffic or interference with vehicles. The concept that, I looked at the measurements and such, and I said, yeah, that's what the zoning board does all the time. They say, we set a goal. We said, here's our parameters. And then they look at each site because each site stands on its own. You look at the factors that are there. If we were before a zoning board, one of the factors that a zoning board looks at, if you're asking for relief, was the hardship that was created by you. And no, the sidewalk is not totally 7 feet wide there. It's 5 feet wide, the passageway. That was created by the town. Well, God bless them for doing it. There's a beautiful trees, and it's demonstrated that 5 feet of width is adequate, more than adequate for traffic, pedestrian traffic, go up and down that sidewalk day in and day out, night after night, with no problem whatsoever. These tables will be situated right in the same traffic column, if you will, created a protective column created by the tree plantings. So yes, we're looking for, in essence, some relief from the regulation that is cited by the code compliance officer and by Officer Wazzy. But the reality is, if we've already demonstrated that this fits, it fits perfectly. I really do appreciate your holding it. I know it's getting on in the evening. You've been at this for an hour and a half more or more. But I want to close with a letter that you actually have in your package, but I think it says a lot. It's by Mr. Hamill, Robert Hamill, local resident's been here for decades. He is actually a psychologist. And he writes as follows: I understand there's some concern regarding public safety and sidewalk dining at the Portside Tavern. In my opinion, alfresco dining at local restaurants is an absolute pleasure, especially after being cooped up all winter. I would bet that each venue that offers outside dining would say that it helps with their bottom line, and each restaurant seems to police their site to keep it safe and attractive. I have not seen anything that would interfere with the safe passage of pedestrians, wheelchairs, or deliveries at any of our outdoor vendors. Portside in particular seems to be one of the better organized sites. It is the perfect model for you to use for your future guidelines, quite honestly. Do you have a clear passage through? Do you have handicap accessibility, which we do? Do you have ingress and egress that's easy? We do. It fits perfectly here. So that this site is absolutely ideal for the concept of following through with sidewalk dining. And with that, I will not drone on for hours, because as an attorney, sometimes we do that. If you have any questions of Mr. Correnti, I'm sure he'll answer them.
Chief, did you want to share something?
Yes, I would agree with Mr. Correnti's attorney that we have not had any instances where there's been a motor vehicle or a pedestrian struck situation during the pandemic. I would like to add something to Lieutenant Wozni review of that particular instance, and I'll certainly defer to the solicitor. For my review of the town ordinance 25-1 prohibits there's 6 tables that Mr. Correnti would like to install along that tree line. And my interpretation of that ordinance is that nothing can impede a passenger's door from opening up and that passenger exiting from that vehicle. The town could repeal that ordinance or modify it, or if the solicitor says it's not, applicable to this particular situation. In your packet, you can see the tree line and the tables. We actually went out and put a lot of diligence into it, knowing how important economic development is to the restaurants and to the council, and counted chairs and looked at that. Or we could additionally take parking spaces in front of that establishment and make them no parking would be an addendum to my recommendation if it was the council's goal to approve that. One would be repeal 25-1, or the solicitor could say it's not applicable, or make those no parking in front of that restaurant so that there is not a situation where the passenger of a vehicle exiting would be impeded.
Mr. Solicitor.
There's no question that the ordinance is applicable, and obviously during COVID, a lot of ordinances, many ordinances were placed in temporary abeyance given the crisis that we were in. So that is an applicable ordinance, and of course, your sidewalk ordinance itself requires, in this situation, 7 feet of clearance, and we don't have 7 feet of clearance. So this is a difficult one. I understand, but we do have standards. We do have it's an ordinance. It's not a policy. And you have a series of recommendations that point out the issues with this application. And unfortunately for the applicant, all of those recommendations are, this is a no-go because it's just not going to fit. And my fear for you in the town is that, if you begin amending ordinances, as Mary alluded to, it's going to be town-wide. It just can't be for this area. So there are issues.
Mr. Solicitor, what was the number of the ordinance? And can you read the ordinance to us?
Chief, do you have it?
I do. I did bring it up on my phone.
Right, well, he's reading that one. I can read the one on outside dining. It said that for sidewalks between 9 feet to 12 feet in width, and according to Ray Falcoa, this is 9 feet 1 inches. Tables and chairs must be placed close against the building in such a manner as to provide a minimum of 7 feet of unobstructed passage width for public use. The maps that you have in front of you, based on the measurements that were performed, show that 7 feet does not exist. So that's that one. But the chief was referring to a different ordinance, 25-1, I believe, Chief, if you have that in front of you right now.
Yes, 25-1 says placing, depositing, or putting merchandise or personal property on sidewalk. It reads, no person shall deposit, place or put, or suffer to be deposited, placed or put by any person in his employ, any goods, wares, chattels, or merchandise on any sidewalk in the town, except while loading or shipping the same, or actually removing the same into or out of some building or enclosure, or loading the same into or unloading the same out of some vehicle, in such a manner as to interfere with the free discharge of passengers or operator of a motor vehicle onto such sidewalk, whether such operator or passengers are actually being so discharged at the time or not.
And so that's why the outdoor dining ordinance specifically states that the tables need to be up against the building so that it wouldn't interfere with that ordinance. But then there are these spacing requirements, which are going to be difficult to overcome in this situation.
So for a point of clarity, if this council said, I hear you, but we want to approve it. I'm not suggesting that's what we're saying, but I just want to play this out. We would be going against our own ordinances.
I would advise you could not, you can't make an exception unless you amended the ordinance and went through a 2-meeting process to do so.
Okay.
If I may speak to that.
Certainly.
Were it not for the trees, we have a 9-foot wide sidewalk. The town has created the hardship upon this particular site. The applicant owns to the sidewalk. And were he allowed to put these tables along against his building, against his site, on the sidewalk, he has 9 feet except for where the trees are. But that would not make any sense whatsoever. One would have to zigzag down the sidewalk, come past the tree, go back away from the sidewalk, because the town has made the sidewalk effectively narrower in front of his establishment. It's a 9-foot sidewalk, but it's not a 9-foot sidewalk. He's asking to use that area that the town has already taken from him because its actions with the trees have made it so that you cannot put logically tables along his establishment's frontage without impeding on what is the town created passageway there. So I think that this is indeed a situation where some guidance can be used, or rather discretion can be used. There we go. Discretion can be used because it's a hardship created upon this site by the town's actions with the large footprints of the trees. And it works, it looks nice, but it is a detriment to his establishment.
I
And-
appreciate I see where you were going with that, but I must tell you that we're looking at a map right now
Mhm.
that says that there isn't even 7 feet if you go to the middle of the table. So if you said the trees were the hardship, which is a difficult, but if we go down that path, our map shows that you don't have the 7 feet. Am I reading that correctly? And I asked my colleagues or the administrator. So there isn't even 7 feet there without the trees. Now, obviously, the trees are actually in that 7-foot part, but if you place the table as proposed here in front of us, it's actually less than 7 feet. So
You
the
have-
table itself without I'm not including the tree.
Oh, I understand that, but the passageway has been roughly 5 feet between the establishment and the tree footings for decades and has had no problem. What he's proposing are, how large are those tables? 2.5 feet? 20, those are 24-inch wide tables, so 2 feet wide.
2 feet.
So they're not out at the curb edge. They are in a column of space that's 4 feet wide. So there's a foot on either side. The concept of impeding people can easily get out of their car.
So I just want, it could be like 28. I don't know. off the top of my
Okay,
head.
that's a fine. It could be 28. He wants to correct me. He wants to be accurate.
Can I ask Richie a question?
Please, of
Yeah,
course.
Richie, would
Please.
you be opposed to like a scaled down version of what you proposed?
If I'm turned down for what I'm asking for now, yes, I would take whatever I can get.
What
Absolutely.
would be a possibility?
Well, I guess for me, I guess my preference would be, I've made it clear how I feel about these types of issues because I just feel like we're still not done with the pandemic. And I've talked about it before. I've said it during our previous meetings that some people just still aren't ready to go back inside. And there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of
Anyone with
unmet supply for some of these restaurant
anyone with minor
tables.
children can't get advantage.
So I feel like my position's already been clear about it. I think that some of these restaurants are still dealing and recovering from some of the lingering effects
Mhm.
of the pandemic.
Can I also touch on that? You're absolutely right. I have people who won't come in the building at all. They wait outside. If people call the hostess from outside to see if they can get a table. And I totally understand. We don't know what's going on in everybody's life. And some people have to be more cautious than others, but they still want the ability to go out. And those tables provided that ability to go out. Another thing that I want to touch upon is those tables represent basically a whole section, if not two, for my wait staff that I've already got hired. We're already ready for the summer. I did a really good job of retaining my whole staff through all of this. And a lot of it's because they're getting ready for this, for what already started a few days ago and the next coming weeks. Plus, we also have the whole summer. I'm already starting to feel it now because I don't have enough shifts for the team that I have. You're talking, 1 extra server 4 days a week and 2 extra servers 3 days a week. That is that 10 shifts a week? I mean, that's 2 people's jobs right now. And without these seats, I don't have what they need because we're at a time of year where my outside is what everybody wants. Matter of fact, the people that are eating inside is because I don't have anything available outside anymore. For the reasons of the pandemic, and just outside dining is very popular. I also think that what we did and the way that we set up our outdoor tables just made the entire area pop. Driving down there when we added those tables, and I got custom tables, we painted them, we made them look really, really nice. Nothing was gaudy, nothing looked cheap. I thought it was a real nice entrance to the town, and it made us stick out a little bit better. That whole area, sitting at a table and watching the park was just a little bit different on those tables, and it added a lot of character to that part of the town.
I just have a couple of, are you done, Aaron?
No, go ahead.
Oh, you weren't?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. No, I just, I mean, I'm sort of struggling with this issue because I see all the sides of this. I mean, you probably have already probably one of the most, if not the most outdoor dining than anybody else. by thinking like the lobster pots deck or SSD on, between the side and the front that you have.
I'm like 6th or 7th, but yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of space.
I do.
Some
That is-
people have
but-
like 2 tables in front, nothing else. But I guess my question is a little bit along Aaron's lines. I mean, 7, when I counted it before the last meeting, I think there were 7 tables out there. I know your request is for 6. It seems kind of an awful lot, like awfully, like maybe 3 or 4 might be more reasonable. But the other thing is, and I don't even know if this would be a good idea or not. I'm just like thinking out loud here. The impediment, I mean, I don't even know if this is a good idea, as I said, or not, because on one hand, people can still, look at the picture I'm looking at right now, get out of their passenger side
Mhm.
and come up onto the sidewalk, and especially if those tables are not full. But the idea of potential danger of somebody, a car coming over too far, getting hurt, just losing a little bit of control. I mean, people are literally sitting on top of the street. So no other location do we have that literally sitting on top of the curb. I mean, I don't know if there are materials such as thinking, just something along the lines of like Unity Park, where Brick has just the outdoor, very, just some couple of wooden pieces or balustrades. I'm not talking about the yellow, I'm talking about just with the cabling, something like that, that would differentiate and keep the area safer. If that's something that doesn't have to be put into the ground, because this is all stuff that needs to be removable for the rest of the year. And I think that's part of the concern with this, is because, you are right on the street. Things can happen. I mean, that's one of the, there's certain places in town, like when I saw certain doors being open at a certain other location, I was like, oh my God, somebody could lose control and they're gonna wipe out a whole bunch of people. And so I think there's some legitimate concerns on this. I understand the point that the lawyer, Bruce, nice to see you, haven't seen you in a long time. Bruce is making, but I would also love to hear from the 2 attorneys in the room, which is always interesting. If there's any case law on this issue of the sidewalk, the town has taken the sidewalk, but the sidewalk is the town's anyway.
It is true.
But, so that now he's got a quote hardship because the town planted trees like many years ago. Is there anything written about that anywhere in case law in Rhode Island or any other place?
About the town creating a hardship, or is it simply the fact that a
Well, the town-
hardship
the town-
exists?
Your point is the town created this hardship.
That's correct. And that's why we can't go right against our own boundary, if you will, because the outside dining that is against his building right now is actually on his own property. That is
Right,
owned
right,
by
I
him.
understand that, yeah.
So we cannot go alongside that, because we would shut down that column of 5 feet of width between the tree footing and his property. So that, and in terms of, we've been obviously talking in whispers back here, in terms of reducing the number of tables. Certainly, Richie is willing to, accept that. That'd be very decent of the board. I understand your concerns. But Jules here owns the ice cream shop right next door, and this is a public hearing. She said, can she talk? And I said, absolutely. you can
This is
talk."
not a public hearing, actually, but absolutely, we do allow for the public to speak. So it is actually not a public hearing. But before you do, Jules, because I do want to hear what you want to share, and your business is right next. Mike, I need clarity. I feel like we're arguing a point that we shouldn't be arguing. And let me be clear. What Attorney Cox has said was that it's the trees that are the hardship. The map that I'm looking at is the proposed tables would not have the qualifying width of the sidewalk. If the trees were removed tomorrow, it would not make a difference.
That is
The
correct.
tables are in or out of compliance with our ordinance. So it's your recommendation, it's your guidance, or you use your own words, that if we so choose to change that, if we wanted to say yes to this, we need to change the ordinance.
You have to change the ordinance to reduce the amount of distance between the edge of the street and the tables, because right now, the tables, to be 7 feet back, there's not even 2 feet.
There's no space.
There's no space.
So you can't do it.
And the map that I'm looking at, that you all have, which is the applicant's map, shows the tables in between the trees. So I agree that the trees really aren't the issue. The issue is the distance that's required by the ordinance. We would have to amend that ordinance.
So so again, and I felt like we went off track a little bit, so I just want to make sure we're on the same page. If this council chooses to, if we see the value in taking next steps to allow this, and actually, we would also then affect other,
Correct.
right? Every other place that has a sidewalk use. So we would have to look into that. But leaving that aside note for a moment, we need to change the ordinance. So even if we want to, you believe that, or I shouldn't say, it's your guidance that we can't do this tonight or should not?
Again, unless someone's going to dispute the numbers that Mr. Falco has put together, I don't see how this qualifies under the ordinance.
And then, and Mike, according to the ordinance, it just says we also have to, we'd be breaking as far as they must be placed close against the building. Is that also?
Well, I think he has it placed close against the building. I think that's fine. The
Right.
question is the distance between the table and the edge of the sidewalk.
But I'm
distance.
confused because in the picture, the map there is saying 9 feet 1 inch. And then it says the minimum required dimensions, no license shall be allowed for sidewalk service if the sidewalk is less than 9 feet wide, measured from the curb to the closest point on the outside wall of the building. I understand that there's 2 ordinances involved, right? The sidewalk dining ordinance and then the passenger vehicle ordinance.
And the actually alcohol use. So it turns out, the administrator and I were speaking earlier, the alcohol is actually a lesser requirement. But and please correct me if I'm wrong here, it's 7 feet for food, so and 6 feet for alcohol. Is that correct?
So what I'm not seeing here is, and just correct me here, let me just see. And then it goes into, so if you have 9 feet 1 inch. From the
Which is
curb-
what they have, right?
From the
9 feet
curb
1
to
inch.
like the end of his patio. like
Right.
front porch, whatever you want to
Yep.
call it. It doesn't say in the ordinance, does it, that it has to be, the tables you have to clear 9 feet. Like, in other words, you're saying that the tables bring it down to maybe 7 feet. I mean, that's what I'm just trying to clarify on this, because we do have that section of the code.
And I have a minimum of 6 feet of unobstructed passageway with
Right, there's that whole thing about
For
sidewalks in excess
alcohol
of
and
12.
7 for food.
7. Okay, 6 for.
Mr. Chairman, may I comment?
Certainly, go ahead.
So I did talk to the code compliance officer who took the measurements. He measured 9 feet 1 inches, which brings him into the 9 feet to 12 inch width sidewalk bracket, which is greater than the other bracket, which was 9 feet. He's at 9 feet 1 inches. If you cut the trees down, take the trees out of the picture, we eliminate the trees. They're no longer there. Then they're saying they could put their tables and chairs along the side of their building. That would only give them 2 feet and 1 inches to run outside dining, 2 feet 1 inch. And in the ordinance says, because the ordinance says you need 7 feet of unobstructed passage for public use. So if they can do it within 2 feet and 1 inch, which is going to be very hard to do, then they could do it. But again, that would be on the business side, not on the curb side. And we can't do that right now because the trees are there. But if we took the trees out, they still can't do it. It's
Why
two
wouldn't you-
two
how many
feet
feet?
1 inches is not enough space for outside dining.
Got it.
So, but I mean, if you just put in the space between the trees, if you just put like 3 tables, I'm just, making this up hypothetically, in between the trees by there, because it really, I don't think it would make sense to put it up against the port, like the patio. It's better to like move it away so that you have a straight shot walking down the sidewalk, as opposed to, going like in and out, like what you're talking about is a zigzag. If you did it against the building, it's possible that he puts it up over there, but I mean, there is a lot of, it's very, very, the other issue with this is a very, very busy area because of the ice cream shop too. You've got tables there, it's very busy. You've got, I mean, I understand the point, but it looks like there's more than 2 feet. It looks like there would be at least 5 or 6 feet of the sidewalk available. Because the way this picture is looking right now, the chairs and the table are actually, and I understand the curb issue. I'm just using this as the situation as it is. They're not sticking out as far as the tree. The mulch of the tree.
It's real, change the ordinance, but we can't approve it. The ordinance is saying you need to have 7 feet of unobstructed walkway. Change the ordinance. I understand what you're saying, and make it 3 feet, and then you could have more dining. But right now, we can't approve it because the ordinance doesn't allow us to.
Mr. Solicitor, I don't have the ordinance in front of me right now for the sidewalk use license,
Go
but
ahead.
there's a part of it, a
There's a
section.
part of it in here.
Okay. But there's a section of it that says that the town council can modify licenses for any cause. And that doesn't apply here for Richie's situation.
Well, it's not going to apply in terms of the requirements for how much distance there are. I think, you know, when it talks about the ability to modify, maybe it's 5 tables as opposed to 8 tables, you know, that type of thing. But this is pretty basic in terms of the unobstructed area. It really comes down to, I don't know if a high top can be only 2 feet. I mean, he literally has 2 feet 1 inch of room to work with under the present ordinance. If there's a table and a stool that fits in that 2 feet 1 inch area, then it works. You'd have to modify this to bring it down to say 6 feet. Then it would give him 36 inches, which is probably doable. But again, you're up again. When this ordinance was drafted and you put it in place, it was based on, you know, best practices, public safety, et cetera, et cetera. Could it be amended to 6 feet? Probably. You know, we get some input from the chief and from the compliance officer, et cetera, but you'd have to amend the ordinance.
Let me ask, is it okay if I ask Richie another question? You said your tables are 24 inches, right?
I think they're more like 28, 'cause
But you're-
especially looking at these chairs are 18 inches wide. And those tables look, you know, at least 10 inches wider. I just don't know off the top of my head. I could
Do you
text
have
somebody and
smaller,
take a measure right now.
do you have any smaller tables?
So these are very small tables. They're cafe style tables. But could I get a 24-inch table? Absolutely. You know what I mean? They make.
Open up your elbows, you're not gonna have space.
It says over here, table is 31 and a half. Is that possible?
Again, it's possible. I haven't measured them, you know, since we bought them. So, I mean, that's why a 28 just seems about right to me. But if you're saying 31, I wouldn't argue that. I don't think Ray would mistake a
I mean,
measurement.
I don't know who drew this. I don't know if that's the compliance officer or it says original sketch by applicant. Red, okay, so the table is written in red, that's by right, okay.
I believe it. You know, it's-
These, I was just gonna say, I'm talking to Steve, the tables are showing right on curbside, not up against the building. I mean, that's
Right.
issue number 1. And issue number 2 is not having the distance that's required. So those are really the 2 things we're grappling with.
And moving the tables to the other side is a no-go.
I mean, you would, I'd be okay with that if you would be, but I mean, you'd be
You can just
causing,
zigzag.
you'd be having way more effect on the flow of traffic on that sidewalk than where they are right now.
And we would still need to modify the ordinance regardless, wherever the
Right.
table's actually placed.
Yeah, we still need to.
So I think there's 2 things, and it's been said, that one is the placement. And just to stop for a moment, we're talking about 6 feet, 7 feet, 9 feet. It's not about 6 feet, 7 feet, 9 feet. There was a lot of effort and energy, as you all know, right, that was put into this ordinance to make sure it's safe for the public, it's usable for the public. And some, if not, actually, some of the people that are sitting here were part of that original ordinance. And I believe it. I love it. I think you made some great points here tonight. I think your letter from Bob Hamill, you know, he was spot on about outdoor dining. We all agree. There's no fight from this council. We continue to support all of this. I know we came up with these things, and I'm concerned about if we change this, what are the ramifications of that? What do we open up that we're not considering? I'm happy to have that dialogue. I mean, is a foot going to change things for you? I don't know if it does. But what does it do somewhere else? And if it's no big deal, I'm happy to consider it. My concern is that the solicitor's been really clear. He said that if you say yes to this, we're breaking our own ordinance. So if we want to take the next step, in my opinion, then this council should consider an amended ordinance, have that discussion, have a public hearing, and we could have a first reading at the next meeting and then a second reading, and then the dialogue and talk about it. And if it's appropriate to give an extra foot here, I'm absolutely for it, as long as it makes sense. I said there was 2 things. The second thing that the chief brought up was the proximity to the curb and doors. So that would be another dialogue. And on the record, no, I will not vote to cut down the trees. Not coming down, not cutting, and you didn't
And I don't
propose
think
it,
Richie
anyway,
wants
right?
them
So,
taken down either.
so
Of course not.
on a positive end of things, I'm happy to consider it. At the moment, we, in my opinion, we took months to come up with that. If we want to change it, it's okay. We should consider it, but we can't right now. We need to do it the correct way. We talked earlier about the process. Let's follow our process. If we're going to break our process on this, what else are we concerned about? I appreciate where you're coming from, Rich. We understand the challenges. You have a lot of outdoor dining. You want more. I appreciate that. I'm happy to work with you. And I know my colleagues are too. But I think we absolutely have to go through the process to make sure it's fair for everyone. And we have a law. And I think breaking our own law is a precedent that I'm certainly not going to, you're not asking us to. You're asking for some flexibility. I think we can get there if we want to amend the motion. What are my colleagues think? I'm sorry, the ordinance. I said motion.
I'm interested in investigating amending the motion, but I would like to know what the ramifications are.
I said motion. That was my bad word. I want to say amending the ordinance. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's
I'm
what-
interested
I
in,
apologize.
I think that going down that path it's not great timing because of the, summer and the holiday and so forth. I do think that you're right in the sense that, why would you go and re-look at the ordinance? Because the world has changed since COVID and this
right.
idea world of outside dining, whether it's because people are still hesitant of COVID or whether they've just discovered, wow, this isn't so bad. I like it that way. It's here to stay, at least for a while. And so, it may be, reasonable to go back to look at the ordinance because, some of the people have, like
That's what
Richie's other building, like down at Roberto's, you've got a ton of space there. So you can have places on both sides almost, because it's such a wide place. But then you have other restaurants that literally can put one table outside because of the spacing. So. I think
And
that's
Mary,
something-
I'm in agreement with you because I'm fine looking at the amended motion, but we also just need to explore all those ramifications to understand what we're gonna do. But I'm with you on what you're saying.
Well, I'm just saying
on
that I think if we're gonna do it, we need to go and do the ordinance. It's just not. gonna
Right.
solve
Oh,
this
absolutely.
problem
That's what I'm
quickly, right?
saying.
I mean,
Yeah,
that would
right.
be the way. And, like,
Amending.
Look at where all the other outside dining areas are and how many are actually impacted. If somebody could do like a little map for us and like, what would be added? So you don't have clutter. Like I always use the example of Hope Street in Providence. I mean, there's a restaurant there that has like some tables. I have no idea how wide that is, but it's not that far from the corner. And it's like the buses are going up and down. Like who wants to sit there? But people do, but I would like never want to sit there. I mean, you've got the bus fumes and you've got all the cars right there, I mean, they're away. It's not dangerous that a car's going to come in, or they're going to park there. But it is kind of like, it's not really conducive to, I think, an enjoyable outdoor experience.
So are you saying we move this to Ray Falcoa to kind of explore and see what those ramifications are of the changing of the
Well, I would
footage?
think if that's.
I mean, we
I'm
need
just
to,
saying,
we
like,
need to,
I'm just saying
we
that's
need
if
more
we're gonna-
data.
If we're going to go down the path as the chairman is suggesting, that's what we would have to do. That would be part of it.
Well, I think we're doing our due diligence. It'd be the right thing to do.
So what that would, and yes, you can make your point, is that what that would mean is that we can refer this to the solicitor to create an ordinance that would allow an extra foot or something. You get the gist of it. And then we can look at what that change in the ordinance and what ramifications it has, right?
Before we take the next steps.
Which
Yeah.
does not negate in this case, the passenger car aspect.
It does not. You're absolutely
No,
correct.
but,
So,
yeah.
Aaron?
Okay, so Mr. Solicitor, my question for you then is, what does Richie have to do then if he's got 24 inches to work with. If he wants to do something with that 24 inches, does that mean that he has to put together a new diagram and bring it before the council? Is that how it
I think you
works?
have to do two things.
Because we can't act on it right now without
Right.
it in front of us.
So number one, the placement of the tables has to change from the curb to, the ordinance is clear.
Very clear.
And
To
I
the
don't
other
think
side.
you want to change that part of the ordinance that says the tables must be up against the building. You can't have the tables on the curb because you run into section 25-1. So that's number one. Number two, no matter what, for ADA compliance, we have to have 3 feet of unobstructed, distance. So when he goes up against his building, as Mary alluded to it, there's gonna have to be some kind of zigzag. But that's not even possible unless we reduce the distance from 7 feet down to 6 feet. So I'm more than happy to work with administration and come up with some, if you want to refer it to me, for the July 13th meeting, we can have a first reading if you all desire, and we'll go from there.
Can I just say one thing? And this is sort of neither here nor there, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You know, the whole passenger side thing, I understand you don't want to get against a curb. There are like massive trees in this town that you can't even get a passenger door to open if you
Agreed.
parked over there. And I mean, so that is another kind of,
But
Aggravation.
that of course is true absolutely everywhere. And the issue is, do you want to add to those obstructions that we already have, the natural obstructions, by adding man-made obstructions? That's really, it's a policy question for all of us.
It's a safety question too. So Rich, go ahead.
Just wanted to add something to what you said about the car doors opening. In the parking lot right across the street, if you park a regular sized sedan, which I have, well, it's a little bit big, but it's not a truck or anything. If you open your door and if you're dead in the middle of that spot, you have to go past that painted line, which is, I guess what I'm saying is you have more space to open your car door on my sidewalk than you do just by that parking space right across the street. That was one of the measurements that we took when we were coming up with ideas to talk about this.
Or for the parking spaces that are right out here, those are only 9 feet, right out here that you line up to. And if I may address the council and
You
listen.
can, but you know what? I said that Jules could share her thoughts
Absolutely.
and she wasn't allowed to do so. Please.
Hi, I'm Julie Leonardo. I'm Jules Ice Cream owner, and I'm here supporting Richie, of course, in Portside. I lost 2 tables as well, so I only have 2 tables outside and angry ice cream customers who have nowhere to sit. And the reason that I'm here supporting too is because I have a tree that's physically right in front of my business. So we had customers that would use Portside's tables. So I feel like 2 hand-in-hand businesses working together well and no customers really complaining. And I know there's measurements in the ordinance in place, but maybe even something seasonally where we can come up with a balance here to help out. And back to, people still have COVID in mind. I had a family of 4 with young children who told their kids they couldn't get ice cream because there was no seating outside and too many people inside. So certain stories like that, it's going to happen, it's going to come up. But because I had to lose 2 tables from where the sidewalk was, I'm feeling the same pains that Portside Tavern is. And I just wanted to add to that because I think hopefully we can make some changes here, even if it's seasonally.
can I just ask a question to you?
Of course.
This is, it's really going to be maybe the solicitor or the administrator that would need to answer it. But like, let's say on the weekend nights when on the nights when you're really busy, the retail store next to you is closed. So even though it's not like a restaurant, would she be able to put a couple of tables in front of the retail store on those when that's closed? If you lost the 2 tables because of this along the sidewalk. I mean, along this, the
Yes.
curbing.
So next to both of, I have Jackie's Loft next door, and then I have Nicole's Hair Salon next door. She has outdoor seating. So I lost that side towards Portside where I was originally keeping my 4th table that was off the curb, but she's entitled to her space as well. And as far as Jackie's Loft, that's blocking her window display and her business, where I'm sure we could work something out there, but that would also have us bringing tables indoor and outdoor during a rush and moving more furniture, as if my customers already move furniture. So they're moving tables and chairs, even if it's at the curb.
Maybe be worth asking, like as a neighbor thing, like, like even if it's a bench, like there's a couple of things on the market that, fold right up into like a picnic table and a bench or something like that, just so people could sit. They can also go over to the park with their benches, but I'm just saying that that's another tough situation, I guess, too.
So I think I think we should move forward with this. I think that unless the council disagrees, I think we're on the same page that we'd like to explore the opportunity. Chief, just one sec. We'd like to explore the opportunity to amend the ordinance to at least consider this. And if that happens, then we need to be cognizant that these tables would need to be closest to your restaurant to follow our other ordinance. And these ordinance, look, These ordinances exist for safety. And there's a Carl Sagan quote that I love. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, meaning just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. And I'm concerned as much as you are too. You're a business owner. You don't want anybody to get hurt. And I'm not suggesting you're risking business to do this, but the reality is that we have to sit here and think of the worst things, the bad things that happen, and they could happen. And that's why we wrote these things, so we can make sure that the public is safe. Chief.
Not that I'm advertising to eliminate any more parking spaces in the town of Bristol. I did recommend as an amendment to my proposal that you could restrict parking in front of those business establishments seasonally to provide that buffer or that extra footage so that they could partake. I don't know if that would work with the solicitor or the ordinance or the numbers, but that was one of my addendums to bringing up 25-1. That
We can certainly consider everything.
Yeah.
It might be like two
I'll work with
spaces.
the chief, I'll work with the chief, the administrator. I'll give you options. How's that?
Because I'd like to know how many spots would be eliminated. What are we looking at? Like 3,
It would have to
4,
be
a
around
couple?
two. I mean,
2?
like, if you went, like, say, 4 tables, I mean, you really don't want to get rid of parking that whole area, I don't think.
It would be
The
more than
same
that.
is-
It
Huh?
would
So
be
why
at
don't-
least 4 cars.
Why don't we do this?
If I may.
We have to look.
Yes,
Just
please.
very briefly, I know I've been very quiet throughout the whole thing, but I'm hearing about eliminating parking, change the ordinance. Let's just think about, and I know some of you already made that point, that what will be the impact? Will we be visiting for the rest of the summer, sidewalk after sidewalk use? Okay, we'll be sitting here through the month of July and part of August. Okay, revisiting, the various establishments that will be coming back and go, hey, hello, I'm here too. What are you going to do for me? So I would be cognizant of that. The other thing is, I appreciate Chief, recommending the no parking, but it goes right against what we talked about on State Street. Here we are. I mean, downtown is in trees, you name it. It is the town, the character of the town. Let's live with it, folks. Come on, it's like, let's change the whole gimmick of things. I'm sitting here quietly and I'm going, what am I missing? I've been here for 52 years in this town, and I love it the way it is. But now here we are trying to change the character. Get rid of that tree. We need this here. What's favorable? I can understand that we need to work with business, and we have done that. During the pandemic, okay, actually what has happened is as a result of the pandemic, it has grown arms and legs. And now it's like, we can do it. And we entitled to it. That's what I'm hearing. Really? Come on, folks. Let's really live with the situation here. It is our town. It's the character of the town. You're saying trees. Yes, that is true. That's why we named, what is it? Tree City of USA. We love those accolades, but then we go, oh, not good enough. We need to get rid of the trees. So what am I missing here, folks? Please let me know, because I must be living in a different community.
Well, I don't know anybody for the record who has said they want to get rid of the tree.
Yeah, I second
Well,
that.
you're complaining.
No,
No,
we're not
you
cutting
didn't
any
say
trees
that.
down.
For the
No,
fact that we're
absolutely
blaming
not.
the
We're not-
trees.
no, looking-
One at a time, please.
We blaming the trees that causing a hardship. Excuse me. Those trees were there for, I don't know, empty years, as you stated. It was not an issue for the previous establishment. I've never seen them complaining. They never been here to complain about that.
Okay, can I comment on that?
Yes.
I don't think we were blaming the trees. I think we were making the point that our tables take up the same amount of space as the trees. That's all. And people are able to navigate around the trees when they're opening the car door, just as they are able to navigate around those tables. I apologize for any misunderstanding. Can I throw one more thing too? I also really like the pier.
You like what?
I also really like the new pier.
Oh, see? Nice recovery, Rich. That's really good. So let's do this. Let's discuss this. A first reading and a second reading doesn't mean it's going to pass or not pass. It doesn't mean we may find by changing these, adjusting the widths, that we open up issues. I believe, as all you do, that a sidewalk is a sidewalk first. Whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you're walking with your family, and for myself, I walk with my family down Hope Street and Thames Street. I should not walk around a sign, a chair. It's a sidewalk first. It's using the sidewalk. It's not the business sidewalk that the public gets to use. It's completely the other way around. So public comes first. Public will always come first for the use of the sidewalk. So let's look at this and let's see if our current ordinances are adjustable and still make sidewalks first. Let's find out. I'm willing to, and I think all of us are looking at that.
Yeah.
And we have a motion to that effect to refer the refer to the solicitor.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
And just, I think it's also going to bring the alcohol use 6 foot and the food 7 foot. This will also be able to, we'll be able to consider that. But as part of the amendment of the ordinance, if we decide to go down that avenue, we need to make sure we have Ray Falcoa put together some sort of study in a way to find out what that opens us up to. So we go into this, we have all the data in front of us.
The one thing that I just question anyway, is why there isn't more parking in certain areas on Thames Street. I mean, like, there seems to be space in front of a few other places. And is that a possibility to allow a little bit more parking than if we ended up taking a space or two at the rate from here, that we, have like a net zero loss? I mean, I've always thought that. I think there's places that are possible spaces.
Any other discussion?
Oh, and just, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking
course, go
forward to looking at this ordinance. I think ultimately we write the ordinances. It's our responsibility to adjust the ordinances if, we living through experience and everything like that. And so I'm totally open to taking a hard look at this and making those adjustments.
Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry. So that's a great point. Tony just asked me, we need to, Mike, give me some guidance and give us some guidance in regards to what was just in front of that. So are we denying it? Are we denying without prejudice? Is that the?
So you didn't take any action
Correct.
this evening. And instead, you've directed my office to come up with there will have to be a new application at a future time.
Let me ask
Attorney Cox, would your client be willing to withdraw the application for purposes this evening?
Yeah, I believe you. Yes, you will.
Okay, so the application's being withdrawn. Therefore, there's nothing in front of you other than the action I'm going to take.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarity. You're probably still writing that, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is going to be J1. And this is RFP 984. This is the wastewater treatment facility upgrades for the handling process upgrades and miscellaneous improvements. The bid opening was today at noon. We received one bid in regards to bid 984 from Hart Engineering Corporation, and that was in the amount of $5,980,000.
What's this council's pleasure?
Make a motion to refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
There's a motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to refer to the administrator. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is J2. This is RFP 987. This is for the road resurfacing project. Today was the bid opening. Today at noon, we received 7 bids in regards to bid 987. The first bid was from Narragansett Improvement Company in the amount of $2,151,945. The second bid was from PJ Keating Company in the amount of $1,967,846.95. The third bid was from T Miozzi LLC. This was in the amount of $1,710,133.75. The fourth bid was from D'Ambra Construction Company, Inc. That was in the amount of $2,353,550. The fifth bid was from Hartford Paving Corporation. That was in the amount of $1,998,314.37. The sixth bid was from Carty Corporation. This was in the amount of $1,686,800. And the last bid was from J.H. Lynch and Sons, Inc. in the amount of $3,052,185.
Council?
Motion to refer to the town administrator and the Department of Public Works to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to refer to the administrator. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is J3. This is RFP 988 for the Rogers Free Library roof replacement. The bid opening was today at noon. We did receive one bid in regards to bid 988 from Westway Construction, Inc. in the amount of $335,000.
I motion they refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to refer to the administrator. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is J4, and this is for RFP 989. This is for the Bristol Town Beach concessions. Bid opening was today at noon, and we received no bids.
So
Uh,
we go out to open market? Okay, so help us with that. What's the action on this one, please? Mr. Solicitor?
We need Ziggy back.
Need who?
Ziggy.
Oh, Ziggy.
Food service from the school department, I mean, they provide a lot of free lunches around the state. I don't know.
Is open market at this point?
It's open market. It's open market.
So do we need to take action?
You can direct the.
Just refer to the administrator?
Yes.
And, director.
Could we get a motion to that effect?
So we.
Second.
What they said with a
Yeah.
second, any discussion? Everybody clear on what we're doing?
I got you. I heard you, Mayor.
Okay, we're going to the open market. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is K1. This
There you
is
go.
Alan Klepper, the Barrington Director of the Bristol County Water Authority. This is the monthly report for May 2022.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, we will move to BB1, the tax assessor DeMayo recommendation of abatement and additions.
Tony?
To just complimenting, I should say, the tax assessor and collector. Certainly, she did a good job on the assessments, to the point that we have very little abatements, actually $75,000 and a $55 million budget. It means a big deal. So it's a great job on that end.
I agree. Is that a receive and file?
Yes, receive and file.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, next item would be CC1, Town Treasurer Gausher, in regards to the revenue and expenditure statement for June 2022.
Likewise, on this one, there's two items. One, we have 24 accounts. Out of those, 20 accounts were right in budget, within budget, 4 over, but with a good explanation. And I'm not going to go through the explanations, but visiting those 4 departments, I can see how it would be justifiable. With that being said, that also speaks volumes for the department heads as to how they, propose their budgets and the job the work that they put into the budgets.
Again, agreed. Absolutely phenomenal. It is not easy, especially in the time where gas used to be $3 a gallon and is now $5 a gallon. Doesn't seem real. And that's
See what happens in
Right.
next budget.
yeah.
Can I just make a comment on this, because I know we sort of rough it out sometimes. Right on that first page is the what the meal and meal and beverage tax is. And I know when we were talking about it, it was like, oh, it's around 450. It's actually this year is 553,071.
Wow.
And the original budget was 515,000 and change, so it's up 37,000.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're on our way to, 600 maybe.
Yeah. And if we,
That's good news.
And there's like a three,
if we-
I mean, it's hard because we're not allowed hotels, but that tax is up by 1,500.
yeah, So we're definitely on a good trajectory. And if we expand, we're going to be growing that amount.
Receive and file.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then it was GG 16, if my memory, or we already do that. Who pulled GG 16?
I did, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let everybody know that the town is in receipt of the opioid litigation payment of $64,684.65. I think it's the first payment. It's going to go into a restricted fund, but it's fantastic to be able to get this check because I think we can do a lot of good for people that are dealing with substance abuse. And I'm talking about the people from the bottom all the way up. I mean, we can do prevention at the top, but we can also work, I think, at the bottom with people that are dealing with substance abuse. We can help there. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention, and it's great that we're getting those payments.
Council, did you say 64?
$61,684.65, Tony.
Still a good piece of change.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's for check one, right? Seems like there's more coming in.
Is that a receive and file, Tim?
Yeah, motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Aaron to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think we've
Nope.
gone through everything.
So we're at, I just need a motion to adjourn, everyone.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
Before we close, on behalf of Mary, Tony, myself, Aaron, Tim, and everyone here, we wish the people of Bristol a happy and safe 4th of July. Enjoy
Yeah.
yourselves. Don't lose, keep all your digits by staying away from that stuff. if you know.
What's-
Excellent.
Those
Good
five
night,
works.
everybody.
Yeah.
Good night. Yes.
All in favor, sorry.
Yeah.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Great. Good night, everyone.
Good night.